So we'll be identifying and comparing the different habitats in the school ground. We're so lucky here that we've got such vast grounds and forest and woodland, and so we can really get our teeth into these topics and have a look at the different conditions in those different habitats. So the light, the shade, the soil, temperatures, and then we'll make predictions on what we might find in those habitats based on the conditions there. So we might find, we wouldn't really expect to find, we would expect to find woodlice under a log, maybe in the forest, because it's cool, it's damp for them. And then we'll classify the different types of animals that we find in those different habitats, so invertebrates, vertebrates, insects, so on.
Continuing with our guided group reading, which we do several times a week, and during this we can highlight various aspects. We can talk about what's happening in the story, but we can also pick out verbs, nouns, adjectives, homophones, and we're also developing higher order skills of inference and deduction, so we're presenting some quite challenging comprehension. Writing, we're doing report writing, finding out what the key features are of this style of writing, the typical language and organisational features, so they're looking at subheadings, how it's set out, the type of language that's used. It's not like a story, the beginning, middle and end. They're finding information and presenting it as a report. We also have our extended writing, or the writing club as it's been named, on a Wednesday morning. Here they have 2 sessions every week. It gives them a chance to write at length, to really think about story writing. So this is usually fiction. They can plan a story and we focus on various aspects. So it might be the beginning, how you can create a really interesting beginning, an opening to captivate your audience, and looking at the end, how you bring it to an interesting closure. They'll proofread while they're doing all of this, and then we're looking at now redrafting a section. It would be a bit cruel to make them redraft the whole story. They'd lose the will to live. They have to do that because they usually think it's fantastic. Anyway, that's it. Almost the end. So what we do is we just pick one paragraph, maybe it's the beginning or the last paragraph, and see how they could improve it. Poetry we'll also be doing. We're doing shape poems this term and calligrams. Again, they'll be discussing the choice. They'll be listening to lots of poems and reading them, and looking at the choice of words and the impact they have. And to notice what the poet has done, how he might have created sound effects by using sort of alliteration, rhythm and rhyme. So they start noticing the patterns and how they can create a picture using symbols. Started off with capacity this term, using millilitres and litres, knowing the relationship between them. So year 3 will be reading scales and recording measurements using mixed units to the nearest whole or half units of like 3.5 litres. We'll also be solving word problems with time as well, in 1 or 2 step problems. Those are really useful activities actually when it's setting a problem. It makes them think. You have to think about the operation that they're going to use. Are they adding or are they taking away? Are they multiplying? So it really makes them think about reading the question carefully. Symmetry as well, and identifying lines of symmetry. Comparing fractions, so year 3 it'll be quarters, halves and 3/4. And data handling as well, collecting data, information and presenting it in Venn and Carroll diagrams. Year 4 will know fractions of litres, like quarter, half, 3/4 of a litre, a tenth of a litre. And they'll also read scales to a slightly finer measurement, like 3.25 litres. They'll also be measuring angles in degrees as well and recognise that 45 degrees is half of a right angle. Data handling again for them too, and solving time problems, and they'll actually be looking at timetables. So if you've got any timetables at home, or you can bring them up on your iPad or whatever, it just tunes them into looking at them and reading them, and they're working out how long it takes to get from, say, Bangor to Euston or wherever. Using
number facts to add and subtract mentally. We always want them to do the calculation mentally if they can, and not rely on methods. Looking at multiples and factors. Multiples they should be really good at because they're good at their times tables, especially in year 4. They're reeling them off now. Division, chunking, we did that last week, and we had a comment. I was saying to one parent this morning that they enjoyed chunking so much when they got it that they could have done it all weekend, so that was a nice one. They like the chunking method because it's using the times tables that they're really familiar with and have got a sound understanding of.
We're focusing on Bomaris, the creating out on the map. Oh, and I must show you this as well. Our wonderful map drawn by, we have a student with us at the moment, Georgina, and her mum used to be a cartographer. So she is also looking at old maps, looking at how Barbaras has changed over the years. We've got some very old photographs as well, so they'll be comparing photographs from the past to today's photographs and seeing how you know, the high street has changed, or the promenade all around there, and seeing how the buildings have changed. The buildings are still there, but how do they look different? What were they used for? So it's a really nice topic actually, because they're so familiar with the place. And distinguishing between fact and opinion as well, and looking at tourism, and they're going to have a go at writing making their own leaflet to attract people to the area. What points of interest would they recommend? So it's a nice summer activity really.
Science, we're doing circuits and conductors at the moment. The children, the boys in particular, love this topic. So they'll be looking at circuits that are powered by batteries, and these can be used for the investigation, but main circuits cannot be used for the main. We're highlighting the safety elements at all times. We'll be looking at the symbols in a circuit, in a scientific circuit, and what they mean. We're going to introduce switches into our circuits after we've done the initial introduction to the topic, and see how the switches affect the circuit, so they can save electricity, switch the circuit on and off. Then we will look at changing the circuit, so what will happen if we add additional batteries. The bulbs and motors are usually designed to work with a certain voltage. If we add additional batteries, we may blow our circuits and it will burn out. Then they're going to investigate how they can change the brightness of the bulb or the speed of the motors. Again, lots of discussion about how they could do this, and recognising the importance of changing one thing at a time. We won't just change everything and see what happens, because then we won't be able to see what is actually having an effect on the speed of the motor or the brightness of the bulb. To finish this topic, we're going on a trip to Wilver again. We'll be going to the circuits workshop there. We're investigating the work of Picasso, which is it's a really nice topic actually. They've looked at the colour wheel, so they're looking at colour and tone, and primary and secondary colours. They've started as well to look at Picasso's blue period, so looking at all the different shades. You get some really interesting discussions going on actually when you say, well, what colours can you see? So they're just like blue. And then they look really carefully and say, oh, there's different shades of blue. So they had to go then at mixing their own shades of blue as well. And looking at single line drawings. I love that one of the sausage dog there. It always makes me think of Spike Milligan. And that they'll have a go at doing single line drawings as well, which is not as easy as it looks, because they have to really think about it and plan it. But I'll have a go at those too. Introducing the terms of surrealism, cubism, and abstract. They'll experiment as well with abstract portraits using magazine cuttings, and they'll use pastels and paints to create their own self-portrait. Carry on with tennis this half term. Ryan will be here on Friday, so the children will be extending their tennis skills. We've got some good little tennis players in our class. They really enjoy that, so we're really lucky that Ryan's back with us. Then after half term we'll be leading into athletics activities for preparations for sports day. So sprints, the relays, obstacle courses, longer distance running. And then Forest Schools is going to be a big part of their physical activity as well during this first half term. We're going to be doing lots of team building exercises outside, working in groups, really strengthening the bonds between the children in the class. John has done a little mindfulness session with them, and he's going to introduce that in each session that we have with him. So just bringing the children into the present. Children do live in the moment more than we do, but they spend so much of their time doing, and they're busy. So we had a really lovely session. On Friday we went up to the paddock and they played some games, but then we just brought it back down. We sat down and felt the temperatures we could feel on different places of our body, just really bringing them back into the present and refocusing their attention before they went on to the next activity. So that's really good for them as well. So they'll be getting to know their environment in the forest. I'm sure they all slept well on Friday. I know I did. They were up and down those trees and climbing. So it's really good life skills for them as well. We're building fires next week, toasting things, cooking things on the fires, and they're going to come across some problems and problem solving whilst they have their forest school sessions as well. So it's a good all-round activity for them. And continue to have basic conversations, building the confidence, so we're going to be doing lots of role play, just so they're using the language that they've learned. So role play, telephone conversations, cafe situations, just so that they can use it, not just in school, but they can transfer it to outside of school as well, and hopefully get them to use a little bit more of their Welsh. And then I'm going to let them follow their own leads. The uppers wanted to do vocabulary about clothes, and then we could have a fashion show. So okay then, we'll save that right to the end. So a bit of pupil voice there, let them follow their own interests, anything that they in particular want to focus on with the Welsh.
They've looked at other religions, and now they're seeing how this is an important book for Christians, and that it's translated into 400 plus languages, so it's worldwide. And looking how it's split into two sections, the Old and the New Testament, looking at the Bible stories, Ten Commandments, and the Book of Kells as well, looking at ancient manuscripts. And they'll finish with the story of Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat. It's not called the Technicolor in the Bible, of course. It's coated with many colours, and identify the meanings within the story. And finally, music. They're developing their listening and their appraisal skills of music. They started a little bit yesterday listening to some Gregorian chants. We've got a bit of a medieval theme going on with the music to link into the history. But they're starting to investigate sort of the purpose of the music, really. It was used for lots of different reasons, really, either sharing stories, a call to prayer, or just for enjoyment, partying, celebrating, or a rally to war, a war cry, or to keep soldiers marching in time. So it just makes them really, really listen. So it's a great all-round skill for the whole of schoolwork, really. And then they'll have a go themselves playing with some of our own percussion instruments, composing, again, for different purposes. So they'll have to think of a pattern and have a reason for it. So they'll be introduced to musical vocabulary as well, dynamics, tempo and structure. So it should be quite a noisy and interesting time as well. But it's really nice to get them to really listen to music as well and think about it and the mood it creates, how it makes them feel.